I hear all these stories, all these articles, all the Trump voters, they regret what they did back in 2024. I'm here to tell you, very few of them regret what they did back in 2024. The bottom line is this. If there's some idea out there that Trump voters are going around, man, I wish I had voted for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump, numbers say that is a fanciful universe. It really, for the most part, does not exist.
President Donald Trump is vindicated by CNN as his poll numbers keep soaring. Governor Gavin Newsom, he goes against his party yet again as he calls them out to the media. The list of Democrats who are planning to fly to El Salvador continues to grow, and New York Mayor Eric Adams, he goes on Fox News to expose the truth about his own party. We got a lot in store for you guys today, so let's go and get back to CNN. And we know that CNN typically leans to the left, right? Besides the likes of Scott Jennings, who he usually goes by the facts. But of course, there's also Harry Enton. He's a pollster for the network who was recently on Abby Phillips' show. He's a numbers guy. And I want you guys to carefully look at the faces of those other guests as he talks about it, because it's clear that they don't like what they're hearing from him.
But on the polling, because I think this is important, he's right. Trump has his best favorability on the issue of immigration broadly. But can I ask you to explain something to me?
Please.
You have some polling that shows Americans would be okay with everybody being deported who's here illegally. There's also polling that asks more specifically, if you have been in the United States for 10 years, you've paid taxes, you have no criminal record, but you are undocumented, do you support deporting those people? 63% oppose that. So how do we even make sense of these numbers?
Yeah, sometimes it's so interesting. You poll the public, and it turns out the public can hold conflicting views even within themselves, right? And it's part of my job to figure out, okay, where do they actually feel on the overall immigration picture? And I think it's important to note, as we have mentioned, is that Donald Trump's net approval rating on immigration is actually positive, which is very much unlike his first term. If you ask, are we on the right track or the wrong track when it comes to immigration policy, the plurality say that we're on the right track, which is very different from where we were just a few months ago under Joe Biden. So yeah, you see those polling and you see it's conflicting. It kind of actually reminds me a little bit of the gun control debate, right? Where you say, oh my God, 90% background checks. And then of course you look at ballot measures in places like Nevada and Maine. And then when it's actually on the ballot, it's basically 50-50. In my opinion, on this particular topic, what we're really talking about and the metric we should be looking to is, do people like, when they ask, do you like what Donald Trump's doing on immigration? And if the plurality says yes, which is what's going on, then that's the number that I think is most representative of the public at large.
There's a simple way to explain this phenomenon. The Biden-Harris administration took things too far. They let in way too many unvetted illegal immigrants. So much so that they basically invited gangs and terrorists into the country. People that directly threaten the safety of Americans across the nation. And in many cases, people that were able to hurt and even unalive certain U.S. citizens. These facts opened a lot of eyes. So if you're looking for who's responsible for President Trump getting good poll numbers, then you should probably get in contact with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Now, let's talk about California Governor Gavin Newsom. He's been playing it down the middle with some of his recent statements, deciding to take on a more moderate stance compared to before. He's even outright gone against what his own party has advocated for, some of which he supported in the past. Rumors has it that he's doing this to appeal to independent voters, suggesting that he's going to try and make a run for the White House for 2028. Although in doing so, he's also alienating liberals, the same ones who are shouting out in the streets that illegal immigrants should be returned back to the country. Listen to how he responds when asked about the MS-13 gang member Kilmar Abrigo Garcia.
Yeah, it's this is the distraction of the day. The art of distraction. Don't get distracted by distractions, we say, and here we zig and zag. This is the debate they want. This is their 80-20 issue as they've described it. You know, those that believe in the rule of law defending it, but it's a tough case because people are they defending MS-13? Are they defending, someone who's out of sight, out of mind in El Salvador? I mean, we're perfect sheep. So I want to answer your question. I don't know I add much value answering it. I mean, are you kidding me?
This wasn't received very well by many from the left, one of which was the star of the party at the moment, Senator Chris Van Hollen, the same guy who thought that sharing a margarita with a terrorist was a good idea. And sure, he denied doing it, but the optics remain. So here's what he had to say about Gavin Newsom's comments.
Let me ask you about the reaction from within the Democratic Party. While some Democrats support you, others say this is not the issue that Democrats should be focused on. Governor Gavin Newsom of California calling Mr. Abrego Garcia's case, quote, the distraction of the day. He argues Democrats are playing right into the hands of President Trump, an issue he wants to be focused on. How do you respond to Governor Newsom?
I don't think it's ever wrong to stand up for the Constitution. And this is not about one man. If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights for everybody. I think Americans are tired of elected officials or politicians who are all finger to the wind, what's blowing this way, what's blowing that way. And anybody who can't stand up for the Constitution and the right of due process doesn't deserve to lead.
Hey, by the way, guys, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below. The Democratic Civil War is heating up because they just can't make up their minds here. But you know what's weird? They keep saying that this guy is not a criminal, but the second he steps back into his own country, they put him in prison. So what do you think that should tell us? And if you ask me, Gavin Newsom's right. This is not the fight that they need to have with the Trump administration. He's ridiculously popular when it comes to his immigration policies. And for Democrats to go against his strongest card is kind of foolish. They're just not going to beat him there at all. And again, they can thank their own leadership for this mishap. Now, despite how unpopular this is making the party, some Democratic officials are still planning to make their own trip to El Salvador.
And I want to put up this list of Democrats who actually still want to visit El Salvador for this guy. Can we just take a list of that? Yeah, Cory Booker right there, my senator from New Jersey. God bless him. He's going to go down to El Salvador because he wants to bring this guy home. Again, as I mentioned last night, Eden Alexander, a 20-year-old from New Jersey, from Tenafly High School, who's still being held hostage by Hamas. Is Cory Booker doing anything in Gaza to try and bring him home? Absolutely not. But this is the cross that the Democrats want to die on. And I don't really understand. I do understand that there's an argument for due process. But why are the Democrats so strong on this particular case?
They're really grasping at straws. You know, what I think really is unfolding here are kind of two tracks, the legal track and the political track. And I just want to say first, whenever you hear the Democrats start cursing, I think that immediately that's like a sign that they really know
it's a
that
weak argument if you're having to do
if you're having to resort to the four-letter words to emphasize your point. That's something that my mom always taught me. You can probably think of a better word right there.
The fact here is that this is not about the law. This is a political stunt for these Democrats. They're pandering to the radical leftists that are there in their party. Now, at the same time, they're not doing themselves any favors with the rest of the country. It also doesn't help that even Democrats are calling them out. One guy who's been very vocal against this has been New York City Mayor Eric Adams. So here's what New York City Mayor Eric Adams had to say about the illegal immigration situation within his own city of New York.
When I traveled to Washington under the previous administration and talked about this is a problem that no city should experience. I went to El Paso and said this should not be happening in El Paso, Brownsville, both Republican cities and Democratic cities, because it wasn't partisanship, it was common sense. And we failed to acknowledge that. And that $7.5 billion that I spent, $200 million could have gone to our children who are chronically absent. It could have went to my seniors. It could have went to building more housing. That should not have been our problem. And it was. And it was extremely difficult to deal with it. But we did. And it's going to have a long-term impact on our city.
Do you think sanctuary cities overall are good for America?
I think what's good for America is that in our cities, if someone is in your city, the federal government should address who comes in your city. But if they're in your city, you have to provide the proper care. We're going to allow people into the country. We need to make sure that they're going after the services. What we must do is what is happening, I believe, under this administration. We're securing our borders so cities don't have to deal with a federal problem that we're seeing in many of our major cities.
Now, we all know what happened after Eric Adams went against the Biden-Harris narrative. Now, luckily for him, it's the complete opposite under the Trump administration. Now, with that being said, I want to redirect you to a recent live stream I did. I also talked about CNN here, but in a completely different light, with Caitlin Collins getting herself completely embarrassed by border czar Tom Homan. Make sure you guys check that out. As always, thanks for hitting the like button and subscribing. See you next time.